Welcome to this course on adolescence and sexuality. This is seems to be a very troubled area in today's society. How do we view what is happening with our adolescents? How do we view what is happening with our sex education program? United States probably has the most developed sex education program. Yet 1 out of 4 girls have sexually transmitted diseases at any one time, 1 out of 4 teenagers, and has the highest rate of pregnancies in the world. And so we would have to say that our sex education program is not working. So how do we approach it? Some of you will be taking this course as parents. How do we approach the whole area of sexuality with our adolescents? Some of you are taking this course as teachers. Some of you will be taking this course as clinicians. And how do you help young adolescents through their sexuality? The dynamics that we'll be talking about apply obviously to any age, because sexuality is sexuality. And so it is about any age, but adolescence is where it all begins, at least where it should begin. Often referred to as the coming of age. Sometimes that's referred to as the first sexual interaction or serious interaction, but most it is the becoming a sexual being. And it is that which we first want to turn our attention to, is becoming a sexual being and what is involved in that, realizing our potential as sexual beings, as human beings. We are sexual creatures. We have the capacity to procreate, as all creatures do. We are conscious creatures, and so our sexuality is a very significant aspect to us. The particular approach that I will be taking this from is an attachment-based developmental approach. I'm a developmentalist, and as a developmentalist, the main question has to do with our potential as human beings. How do we realize our potential as human beings? How do we realize our potential as sexual beings? How do we realize that? What does it look like? What does it look like if we truly realized our potential as sexual beings? We'll take a look at this and find out that sexuality is really not divorced from the other issues of realizing our potential. In fact, sexuality is very much like a glove, we could say, on the development and reflects the development in other areas. And that's the part that we will return to first of all. Now, this is a huge field. Human sexuality, a huge field. Adolescent psychology is a huge field. To join the two could easily be a university course or 2 or 3. And so what I've tried to do is join the pieces together in a way that the picture makes sense, that can make sense to you, that can be applied in any venue as a clinician, as a teacher, as a parent. That's been my attempt in this course. We could not cover everything, and I found myself having to exclude some very significant areas in adolescence. Gender identification, for instance, is becoming more and more an issue in today's adolescence. Am I really, do I want to be a boy, a girl? Now we have the ability to do sex changes. And so that's becoming a huge issue in today's, many of today's adolescents. And secondly, sexual orientation. That has become a huge issue in terms of sexual preferences, heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, and so on. Although I'll touch just very briefly on these, I found it almost impossible to really develop those areas in the constraints of a 4-hour video course. And so although I touch on it, I will basically have to leave those things out, and we'll focus on other aspects of human sexuality and the dawning of human sexuality as I believe it was meant to happen. And so we'll start first of all with just a brief overview of what has changed. What has changed? First of all, before we go to what has always been the same. So first of all, what has changed? And the first thing that has changed is that adolescence itself, the length of it has greatly increased. Now, how do we define adolescence? Adolescence basically is that period of time from the capacity to procreate, your ability to have a baby, to where you would normally take that role in society, the very important role of parenting in society, the amount of time that is between that. And now that has, or larger, taking one's role in society. But looking at it from a sexual point of view, it is between the capacity to procreate, what we refer to as puberty, and taking one's actual role in society to deal with the results of procreation, babies. And so what is the average time that is there? The average time used to be about 2 or 3 years. And now the average time, as you can imagine, is more like 10, 12 years. We have a couple of changes. The onset of the capacity to procreate is taking a nosedive. And this is well charted in the statistics. The average age of puberty now is 12.5 years, down from what it used to be, and the downtrend seems to be quite sudden. We don't know exactly why, but this means that our capacity to procreate is beginning much sooner than what it did before, and this has huge implications. Likewise, are moving into consolations, social consolations, and into actually having babies is moved into the 20s, well into the mid-20s. So now we say that adolescence goes to 23, 24 average adolescence. And so where adolescence used to be between 13 and 15 years of age, it is now between 12 and 22, 23 years of age. So we have a very lengthy adolescence, and that is part of the significant problems that are here. And we also have a dramatic trend towards the early initiation of sexual interaction. This has caused great alarm. The American Academy of Pediatrics has called it, has announced the alarm of a huge health problem, a major health problem, because of this downward trend in the early initiation of sexual interaction. So that's one of what has changed, significantly changed in the last 50 years, and longer than that, it is huge. The rise of a peer culture. This is huge. I talk about this in my book, Hold On to Your Kids. The whole book is about the fact that peers coming to replace adults in the lives of children. This has fundamentally changed, as we will look at later on, the face of sexuality. It has fundamentally changed our society, and we'll look at why the adolescent society is becoming what we would call hypersexualized. Not just sexualized, but hypersexualized, and what contributes to this in this way. Thirdly, we have the influence of media and social networking. This has changed the whole face of adolescent sexuality. For many, it is the primary source of sex education. Not our sex education programs, but the media and the social networking. And social networking has become ubiquitous. 70% of our teens are now on social networking sites. This again has changed completely the face of the coming of age kinds of rights and processes. And so this is having a significant effect. And finally, we add to this the loss of cultural scripts and intuitive wisdom. That this is no longer do we have the respect, regard for the tradition. No longer do we have in the structures and rituals of our culture do we have embedded the cultural wisdom, and we have not yet substituted the understanding of science. We have not found the words, we have not brought our science in to replace this cultural wisdom, so we're in a huge kind of in-between place. Where culture is no longer respected. We have left the ways of our predecessors, and yet, and when we lose that way, we must replace it with some kinds of consciousness, some kinds of words, and we have not yet replaced it with a scientific understanding. So this course is addressed to this, to try and fill in the gap from science as much as possible. My job as a theorist is to join the pieces together, to try and make sense of today's science, to join the dots so that it makes sense to you and help fill that gap. For some of you, you will look at your own adolescence as you go through this course. Others may have a daughter, a son in mind, students in mind, or you're in charge of the sex education program in your school, or you're a clinician dealing with troubled sexuality, adolescents with troubled sexuality, and so on. And so it is from this place. And how does science inform what we are doing today? What can we learn from it? And so that's where we will begin. And our focus in this particular first hour of this course is on what is meant to happen. What is the design, so to speak? What is nature's intention? If we join the dots, what is our potential for becoming sexual beings? How was it meant to unfold? Often today, the standard that is used to compare all things is the norm. And the norm is the statistical norm, what most people are engaging in, what most people do. Unfortunately, many of our adolescents compare each other to this. Is it normal? Is it normal? That's not the question of a developmentalist. The question of a developmentalist